All right. So in deciding what our topic would be for today, we have been talking about, what are some things that we could really pull together and help out our teachers with? And we kind of have been hearing lots of things from our teachers, some feedback around, feeling overwhelmed. And so there's so many things, there's so much that we could be doing and should be doing, and what should we be focusing on? So we thought a really good topic for today would just be some tips for staff and students alike to be successful in a virtual learning environment. So there are 5 tips. And if you listen to these 5 tips and you learn them, then tomorrow your life as a virtual teacher is going to be solved and so much easier. That's actually not true. But if you listen to all of the things that we're going to kind of talk about here today, it helps to take this very big thing that is virtual learning in the learning environment and to kind of just condense it down to some of those key things that we all want to be and need to be focusing on to make this virtual reality space kind of more manageable for ourselves to save our sanity, and also more importantly for our students who are also kind of jumping into this big unknown for the first time as well. So get started here. I'm going to go into present mode, so hopefully you will still be able to see my screen. All right, so now that I've got this in present mode, I cannot see any of you. So if you can't see something or if you're having trouble, just let me know and I'll try to make some changes here. So to the heart of the matter, okay, so how do we get people all on the same page about virtual learning in the environment? So again, today, just some tips for staff and students to be successful in this new environment. First of all, again, I want to thank you for continuing to offer a calm routine and hope to your students in this very, very challenging time. We are right here with you, also out of our element. So we're here anytime you need us. Just reach out and let us know what you need. And one of the 3 of us or our whole network that works behind us will get you what you need and get you moving. So please reach out to us at any time. And again, these tips for today, they're not requirements. They're just things that in our work that we've seen, this might be useful. This might be something that could help. This might be something that teachers need to hear right now. So again, these programs or these recordings are not mandatory. We thank you for being here. And we hope that what we offer you can be helpful in some way. So to the heart of the matter. What are some tips for our staff and students to be successful in this virtual learning environment? Okay, so tip number 1, keep things super simple. Simplicity is key. It's sometimes really, really difficult to make that transition from what you were doing in your classroom to what now you're able to do in the virtual environment. This is a big change for you, and it's also a very big change for students in the way that we teach and also in the way that they're able to access information, access the learning, and access what we're putting out there virtually for them. So just a couple of things. Keep that instruction clear and simple. Give very clear instructions. And provide your students with no more than 1 to 2 resources for the task at hand. And I think I've heard this in a lot of our building meetings because I get the opportunity to jump into those meetings with all of you. But sometimes we have a misconception that if it's simple, then it can't be rigorous. And that's just not the case. But during these times, maybe we used to plan for an hour of face-to-face instruction, and all of the things that we would plan before worked out in that hour because we had an entire hour with our students. But we need to take into kind of consideration that our students are now working sometimes with Wi-Fi that's inconsistent. They're working at different times of the day. They're taking on responsibilities that aren't necessarily always their responsibilities when they're in a physical space, which is usually school. So less is kind of, that more. Keep it simple for them and make sure that you're very clear about what the expectation is for what you're putting out there. Brian, Wendy, anything you want to add in here?
No, I think it's just the intentionality of that, understanding that you might have said that in 5 minutes, And now you have to boil it down to a 1 or 2 sentence clear message is key.
Okay. So again, making things simple for your students doesn't mean that the rigor isn't there. Simple just means being very specific about here is our learning target, here's what I want from you, and not saying, you know, because of this change, now everything is just a wash. It's just all simple. There's no thought behind it. That's not what we're wanting. We're wanting you to make it simple, but still keep it challenging for our students. And I know that's easy to say and sometimes not as easy to do, but really, really be very clear about what your expectation is for the task that you're assigning your students. All right. Tip number 2, establish a home base. And well, what does that mean? Because as far as I know, professional baseball is not happening, which I'm super disappointed about. But establish a home base for you and for your students. And what does this mean? So really what we're talking about here is where is your home base? So we know that as a district, we've got certain tools that we are promoting because we feel that these are the best tools that we have for the tasks at hand. So your options kind of, and these are condensed, there are other things out there, but these are the 3 options that we really have: Google Classroom, BB9, WebEx. Which one of these areas is your home base? And what are you using each of these spaces for, really? So your directions here, give students directions. So, hey class, every day, I want you checking in on our Google Classroom in that class stream because that's where my announcements are going to be. Or, hey guys, BB9 every day is where you check in to look at what's there for the day. Or, hey guys, we're doing our morning circle at this time in WebEx. But give your students that direction and let them know where they have to do the task and for what. So we are using Google Classroom for this. We are using BB9 for this. We are using WebEx for this. So be very, very clear about what each of these spaces is going to be used for, and then be consistent in how you're using those things daily. So if your students, if you prefer to have, hey, if you've got questions, go ahead and post them in our class stream, or go ahead and post them in our class WebEx. That's where I'm going to answer your questions every single day. Make sure you set those expectations for your students, and then you're consistent about how you follow through with that. So if Google Classroom is always where they're going to get their assignment for the day, and that's always where they're going to turn that in, make sure you establish that connection for your students. Because if you don't establish those norms for them, they aren't going to know. And then this is where all the confusion can come in. Well, am I going to BB9? Am I going to Google Classroom? What is WebEx and how do I get in there and where do I post my questions? So these are all the things that your students are struggling with right now. So if you really say, hey guys, this is our home base. Anytime you have a question, put it here. Guys, this is where your classwork is going to be. Every time you go to get an assignment, it's going to be here. So really setting those norms for your students and having a common space and a common understanding for what each of those places is used for. So WebEx is our communication tool. It's a pretty efficient communication tool. I've jumped into WebEx. I mean, I still check my email, obviously, but now my main way to communicate with both my team and all of the schools that I'm in is always going to be WebEx, because it is easier for me to be looking in one platform than it is for me to be checking in 5 different places. So I could be checking email, Google Hangouts, and whatever other communication tool we're using. But for me, it's easier to streamline all of those things into WebEx. So I know, hey, this is where I'm going to get all of my messaging. This is where I'm going to ask my questions. This is where I'm going to connect with people when we are connecting face to face. So I know this is the tool I have. Here is what I'm doing with the tool every single time that I'm doing it. Same thing with Google Classroom. Here's where your assignment is going to be. Every time you know that you have an assignment, you go there, you open it up in Google Classroom, you turn it in Google Classroom. So you really just have to set those expectations up for your students, and so they know, okay, this is my home base. If I need to reach out to my teacher, this is where I need to do it. Or if I need to get my assignment, this is where I do it. So that's not to say that there won't be technology glitches, because there are, and with everybody jumping into the virtual world, it's easier said than done sometimes. But if you establish those norms with your students, you assign a space for something, give them somewhere that they know, this is where I'm going for this, and this is where I belong. That will really help ease them into this transition into that virtual space. Brian, Wendy, anything to add?
Only thing that I'll add, and it is sometimes a little bit hard to swallow even from our lens. We're people who like to go out as a team and find new tools and do new things that are coming onto the market, evaluate them. But that's why we keep coming back to these are our common set of tools, because every time one of us chooses to go outside of that norm of the home base, we layer in another place that students may have to go. So even if you choose a home base that is works really well for you, but isn't in alignment with maybe other teachers, that creates just a new level of complexity for families and for students. And so always think about that end user experience. Is my home base the place where they're going to get a lot of information? Is it organized? Those kinds of things. But that's why we try to stick with specific tools. And even if there are a lot of other things out there that might do really cool, flashy pieces, come back to what's the normal tool that you will use consistently and that others are using.
Ed, quickly too, I've been in a couple of sessions where somebody has changed either the header on their Google Classroom, because you can create your own, or in Blackboard to actually state the places that they're going to be and what they're there for. So in the directions or the directions at the right in the header of the class, give them this is when and where, and this is where you need to be. And that can be a really good place for both families and students to see.
All right. Okay. Tip number 3, less is more. Be realistic and prioritize. And what does that actually mean? So in this environment, again, we have to start thinking about what our kids are going through, and also what we're going through in terms of adjusting to this virtual environment versus a face-to-face environment. We're never going to be able to provide the same exact type of experience for our students in the virtual environment that we may have been able to provide in that face-to-face environment. In a face-to-face environment, when you were planning, you had the ability to teach your mini lesson. You were there with your students. You had the ability to respond and give feedback immediately. You had the ability to stop and tweak your lesson if it didn't go the way that you wanted it to, or students weren't quite there and ready to move on to the next step. Those were luxuries that we have in a face-to-face environment, but those are not luxuries that we have in the virtual environment unless you are running your entire class on a format like this, which is not usually feasible for all of our students to be in that environment at the same time. And if they miss it, then the reality of it is that they may not have 45 minutes to go back and watch your entire screen recording of your WebEx Meet. So we really have to be precise about what we're asking of our students and thinking about what is the quality of this work versus how much of this work am I offering to my students or assigning to my students. So what this really means here when we say less is more is we want to shift our focus from building a 45 or 50-minute class lesson, but really focusing on that student learning and in long-term kind of student learning and student-driven projects. So, what does that mean? It kind of means, like, when you look at your lessons, how much of your lessons might in this environment seem more like busy work, whereas before in the classroom they had a different purpose. But now, when we're in this type of an environment, is there a way that we can lessen the number of assignments, but offering maybe something that is maybe a longer driven student,
like a webinar kind of thing.
student assignment. And when we focus on those long-term student-driven projects, that doesn't mean there's no accountability. It means you build in those checkpoints and those deadlines along. So there may not be something that your students are turning in every single day, but it is one project or one assignment that they work on throughout the week that might have a week due date, or a 2-week due date. Again, that means you're building in those checkpoints with your students. You're setting deadlines with your students so that if they're not able physically to go in and do that assignment that day for whatever reason, they still know, oh, this is something I need to turn in on Friday. So I can't do that work right now during this time because I have to babysit my little brother. But I can come in tonight at 6:30 from 7 to work on this piece of it so that I'm still going to meet that deadline for Friday. And then along the way, offering checkpoints with your students, offering feedback for your students. And then another big piece of this, sorry, I'm getting some feedback, but another big piece of this is to really build in that choice. In this environment, we have the ability to think about giving our students some choice about how they may want to demonstrate their learning, because just like in the classroom, we know that not every student learns the same way. We know that not every student can demonstrate their learning in the same way. And this type of environment affords us the ability to kind of give students a little bit more choice in how they manage their workload, but also in the types of products or pieces or demonstrations of learning that they're able to submit. Again, efficiency is key. What are the things you really, really need from your students to demonstrate that they've mastered some type of learning target? And what might be the ways that they can get there, instead of saying, this is the way, here, these assignments are the way. Really thinking about it as a kind of a bigger piece, where you say, okay, this is the assignment or the project that I want, and here is how they're going to demonstrate that learning along the way, and where are the checkpoints I'm going to build in. So it might mean you're getting less assignments turned in, or you're assigning less assignments, but that one assignment or those two assignments are really going to demonstrate that learning from the student. Brian, Wendy, you want to jump in at all?
The only thing I'll add is, if you're a teacher who has felt at all kind of handcuffed by the curriculum, this is an opportunity. There's a lot of things that are really stressful about this new environment, but it is an opportunity for us to say, okay, they're not expecting me to do all of that content. And if you wanted to bring project-based, or if you wanted to bring some sort of a challenge into your classroom, here's your opportunity to try it out, see how it works, and roll with that a little bit. So we have some freedom. And sometimes in talking with teachers, I've heard you say, I just don't feel like I have the freedom to do those things. We do. This is an opportunity where we can go down that path. So it might be a chance for you to try something new. And as kids are getting used to this format, you begin to change the game on them a little bit and engage them in different ways with those ideas.
All right, we'll go on here to the next piece. Tip number 4, individual touch points. So I think sometimes we take for granted, and I know I have realized in the last couple of weeks how often I take for granted the privilege that I have to meet with people and to learn from other people and to meet face-to-face with people. I don't know about all of you, but I am really missing that human connection. And I think our kids probably are too. So tip number 4 is individual touch points, okay? So individual touch points, whether they're with your colleagues or your team members or your students, are definitely game changers for all of us, for all learners. It's important to make those individual touch points so that you come back to that base. So like, for instance, our ITC team, during the regular school year, when we are in face-to-face session, we meet every Tuesday for 2 hours. And a lot of the other times we work independently and individually. We're always in constant communication. But coming together for those 2 hours is really important and central for our team, because it helps us just kind of check base to make sure that the group things that we're planning and working on are coming to fruition, making sure that our goals and challenges are aligned, and really working as a team. So your students are used to seeing you every day in that face-to-face touch point. And now they may not be getting that face-to-face. So make an effort to connect with your students. It might not be in an entire class setting, so you might not get all 30 of your kids in at once, but make an effort to establish a personal connection with each one of your students, and thinking about how you might be able to schedule a time just to briefly check in with them. And maybe it's not about a lesson, maybe it isn't about how's your assignment going, but maybe it's just, hi, how are you doing? Like, how is there anything happening in your life right now that you want to talk about? And no, we're not all counselors, and you shouldn't invest that much time into being that one-to-one, that only one-to-one connection for your students, but just letting them know that you are still there, that you are still available, that you still want to connect with them, that you care about them, that you're thinking about them, is really, really important. It can bring that focus back in these times of uncertainty, and really just let them know that yes, things have changed, and this is our new reality right now, but those constants that were there before are still there. They're just there in a different way. So just please do reach out to your students, make a connection with them. We have so many tools that afford us the ability to do this. Find one of them that you're comfortable with. Maybe WebEx isn't the tool that you're most comfortable with. Maybe in your classroom you were using something like Flipgrid to connect with students. Those things are all still acceptable, but just please do reach out to your students and make sure that they're hanging in there. Make sure that they know you still care, and make sure that they still have that connection even though it's not in person anymore. Guys, do you have anything to add?
Just a note from our team, we are going to be digging into that a little bit deeper for feedback and touching with students next week. So if you're unsure about how to do that right now, hang in and join us next week.
Ryan, anything you want to add in here?
No, I think you hit it really well. Maybe I'll just mention this. Age is not the big defining characteristic here. So I have a 7th grader who has been feeling a little bit left out because her 4th grade sister in our home has been having these one-on-one touch points. And the words out of her mouth were last week that maybe her teachers cared more than my teachers do, is what my 7th grader said, which we know is not true. It was perspective that she had. But this morning, her teacher reached out with an email that said, let's connect at some point one-on-one today. And I'm not kidding when I say she literally came skipping out of her bedroom this morning to tell me that her teacher had reached out. So even our middle schoolers and high schoolers need that connection, especially now.
Okay. All right. And tip number 5. These are crazy days, and this tip is really just for your sanity, for our sanity. I think our team has had conversations about what this new working environment looks like, and how often we are making ourselves available 24/7, and it's exhausting. So this tip is really for the sanity of your teachers, but also keeping in mind that we have to think about the sanity of our kids too. And if each one of us, if a student, especially thinking on the secondary lens, if a student is in 6 classes and each one of those 6 teachers is expecting 45 minutes to an hour of work or class time every day, that is adding up very quickly to 7 and 8 hours of just being in front of the computer. And that's not accounting for work time and time that it takes for them to complete tasks and assignments and those things. Really, really thinking about, like, how are you organizing yourself, and how are you also taking that into consideration when you're planning and organizing for your students. So now that you work in the same place that you live, how do you balance this work-life thing? Because it's really easy for them to go together and to merge, and all of a sudden you don't know if you're living life or you're working, or am I working all the time? Am I living? Like, which is it? So just kind of keeping on, and kind of some tips for you as you kind of get underway with this, and however long this lasts. This will benefit you a lot, and our team is definitely trying to work this out too. We have not perfected it yet, and there are times when Wendy's the night owl, so she'll be up working and doing those things. And it's like, Wendy, are you really doing that at 2 a.m? So it is hard to keep that balance, but really establish a schedule that works for you. Right. So not all of us are super early morning people. Not all of us are night owls. What works for you, and stick to that schedule. So if you're saying, you know what, I am available from 9 to 11 every day, and that's when I log in, and that's when my students know that they can contact me and reach me for face-to-face outreach or whatever. Stick to that schedule. Make sure that you take breaks from your screen. I don't know about all of you, but I have been getting in a ton of screen time, and it's been a struggle to get my steps in. So you really have to take breaks from your screen, for your eyes' sake and for your sanity. Don't sit in front of your computer screen all day and all night. It is not healthy. And just remember that you are human. You are doing the best that you can right now with the resources that you have. It is not going to be perfect, but it doesn't need to be perfect. So you're providing an environment for your students to learn and to continue to grow. And that's what's most important. And they're not expecting you to be the expert. They're not expecting you to be perfect. They just want to have you. They want to connect with you. So just keep some of those things in mind when you are working in your virtual environment. And as that little picture says, keep calm and teach on. We will get through this. It's hard, it's challenging. It's challenging for teachers, it's challenging for admins, it's challenging for students, it's challenging for parents. But as long as we all keep doing our part, I think that this is an experience that we can all really learn a lot from, and always keeping that growth mindset going. Yeah, guys, anything to add?
I would just kind of stress too that it's just important to set up that schedule and make that really clear to families. Let them know that, you know, you're not ignoring them, but you really are offline for a period of the day so that you can handle your things. And if they know you're going to come back and check emails at 8 o'clock tonight and they'll get an answer before tomorrow, or they'll get an answer tomorrow morning when you're back online again, can be really helpful. I know, as I see even in our WebEx team conversations and things, people who are like, no one's answered this yet, and it got posted again and again and again. Be patient, know that, you know, we have lots of people covering lots of hours and those kinds of things, but there are times when somebody might not be sitting right there to handle that for you. And if you can stress that with your families and students, that can really make it work out better for you as well.
And some really positive news here. I just did a little bit of research on, calories burned when you use mouse clicks, and you can burn up to 1.4 calories per mouse click. So, at least we're getting our exercise regimen in with being online and all of these pieces. So, and I think it takes something like 350,000 mouse clicks a day in order to burn a decent amount of calories. So, you might want to just make sure you schedule those get up and move around times, because I don't know that you can count on the mouse clicks.
Yeah, right. All right, so that is really the content that we wanted to share with you all today. And I just want to take some time now to just open it up to all of you for questions that you might have. I'm going to stop screen sharing, but let us know what you're thinking. Any feedback you want to give us, we'd be happy to listen to that. I said this yesterday too. Hopefully you can hear me now that I stopped screen sharing, but I said this yesterday too. This virtual environment is really very good for us to learn wait time, right? Because it seems like forever that it takes for people to be able to ask questions. So getting better at wait time here.
Hi, Kristen and Brian and Wendy.
Thank you for your time today. I just want to say, when I was listening to Brian, I was thinking about how glad I am I bought my desk that I can put out a table so I can alternate between standing and sitting. It is very helpful. Very helpful.
Yeah, you never realize how important that is until you have to spend your full day sitting in a chair and you're like, okay, I've got to just move around a little bit here. So getting up and doing it, those standing desks are great.
Yeah, I've taken to setting my Fitbit goes off to remind me that I haven't moved 250 steps within the hour. But I've taken to just setting a timer on every hour, the last like 5 minutes of every hour, and I just walk in place for 5 minutes. And believe it or not, it really does refresh your brain and gives you okay, that felt good, got my blood moving, got my feet moving, and I'm ready to sit down for another hour now. So just building in those kind of little breaks, I think is really helpful. Some, I don't remember, I think it was a teacher from South, but was posting like little like 5-minute workouts. Like it went along with like the letters of your name. Unfortunately for me, I had duplicates in my name, so I ended up having to do a lot of planks, which was not fun. But just little things like that that you can build into your day that don't require you to completely disconnect from school or work, but give you those breaks for just your you time.
And if you think about the focus of some of the tips Kristen shared, if you can even build just instruction for your kids are sitting and looking at screens all day too. So if you can build into that instruction something that gets them moving, or even if it's them filming themselves and sharing that video with you, but them moving and doing something, that might go a long way. We know that from a learning lens, right? If we can get the kids physically moving and engaging, they learn better anyhow. But if you can build that into your ideas around challenge-based learning, or you can build that into something long-term, that might be really helpful for kids, but we have to be explicit about it.
I was in a classroom the other day working with a teacher where one of the assignments was that the students actually had to get up and act out something and record it and send it back. And it was just fabulous to see some of the things they were doing, because it actually physically just required them to get up and do some movement.
Yeah, definitely. And I think some of the things like that lend themselves more to, those kind of places, but like I think of like a photo story, like taking pictures of what you're experiencing and writing about those things are all ways that we can engage our students with, virtual learning tasks, but also working in there that get up, move around kind of feel to it too. So lots of different ways that we can be creative.
And on our end, if you think about the ability to look at, videos, or to look at photos over looking at just text, the strain on your eyes from just the text alone can be, really problematic. So give yourself the break and the kids the break, finding other ways for them to show what they know and share that with you. It'll be appreciated on all fronts.
Any other comments, questions, notes for the good of the group?
So just so everybody on the call knows, the recording will go live. I'm sorry, the recording will go into a processor after this, and it takes quite a while for it to kick it back out. So this recording will be posted back in your building rooms if you want to share the tips with anybody else. But it will take about 24 hours for us to get it in there. In fact, as soon as this is over, we're gonna post yesterday's recording into our building room so that they can be there. So it does take about 24 hours for that recording to update. But if you find something of value, you can be assured that it's going to be there within a day or so.
It's also, if it gets lost in the WebEx train, it is listed in the virtual learning link for staff. And it's our note page, but it's right at the very, very top. So you should be able to find the playlist for all of our Tuesdays there quickly and easily.
All right, so if there aren't any more questions or anything for the good of the group, I think we can sign off here. Again, thank you very much for taking time out of your day to join us and to be present. We appreciate it. It's nice to be able to connect with all of you. And we look forward to future opportunities to bring you kind of just tips and tricks like this that we think will help you in this environment. So thanks again for joining us today, and we look forward to seeing you tomorrow.
Thank you.